let's talk about a piece that I've got up on TexasFootball.com. Sometimes I get a wild hair, which is kind of the theme of this entire show, always.
That's like the theme of our lives.
Sometimes I get a wild hair, and I just want to dive into data. Like, and it always happens during magazine season. And I think it's because my brain is, at that point, very wired for, like, a lot of different data. But I want to do something that's, like, for me.
Right.
And so I went through, and I crunched the numbers on every Texas high school football coach ever. That's an actual thing. I now have a database.
A big spreadsheet.
A big spreadsheet. I now have a database of every person who has ever coached a UIL 11-man Texas high school football game.
And it was cool. Like, the stuff you sent in the Slack was really cool.
If you're interested, the total number is 13,466.
Wow.
13,466. Including, if you're interested, there are a few coaches who have never lost a game. In fact, there are a grand total of 48 coaches who are undefeated in Texas high school football history, including the greatest coach of all time, Frank Flack. Frank Flack coached Menard in 1922 to a 9-0 season and never coached again. Going out on top. They went 9-0. He's
batting 1,000.
He has the highest winning percentage. He has the most games won with a 100% winning percentage. So
that's amazing.
I wanted to go through this because one of the things I was always chasing is who are the best high school football coaches ever. And I think you're thinking of a few names right now. You're thinking of a few names. And those are really good names. If you want to say that Gordon Wood's the greatest high school football coach in Texas high school football history, I think you have a great case. I mean, that guy's got 9 state championships. That's an all-time record. He, of course, is a legend in Brownwood. A guy who is kind of the godfather of, he was for a long, long time the all-time winningest coach in Texas high school football history. If you want to say that Gordon Wood's the greatest Texas high school football coach ever, I think
a lot of people would agree with you.
I think G.A. Moore's got a great case, right? I think there's a good number of guys who have that case for being there. Bob Shelton, I think, has a case. D.W. Rutledge. I think there's a lot of guys, and you're thinking of those guys who are the greatest Texas high school football coaches ever. Here's what I want to do for this, and what I did on Texas Football.com. So I narrowed it down to active coaches.
Yes.
Now, a few notes here. One, 6-man data is pretty hard to come by. It's pretty spotty. And so I've tried to include as much as I can, but it is also entirely possible that I am just totally whiffing on a couple of guys. So if I am, mea culpa. Also, this is for UIL only because private school data is extremely hard to come by. So I've tried very hard to figure this out, so I stuck it with UIL. So a lot of it depends, in my opinion, if you want to talk about who the best Texas high school football coach is today, a lot of it comes down to how you slice it.
Right.
I also think it's worth recognizing and acknowledging that we are saying the best Texas high school football coach when really what we mean is the most successful.
Yes.
The guy who has won the most.
The winning percentage.
Because let's acknowledge that not every Texas high school football gig is created equal.
No.
There are resource differences at every school, right? And realistically, it is entirely possible that the greatest football mind in Texas is a guy who's never even qualified for the playoffs. Like, that's entirely possible because of resource differences, because there are challenges that some coaches face that other coaches will never face. That, you know, we've talked we've had Matt Stepp on a couple of weeks ago and talked about the struggles that inner city schools have. Right? Those coaches are not bad coaches.
No.
They know what they're doing. And the depth of coaching in Texas is so remarkable that there are great coaches, even at schools that aren't winning a ton. And so when I say best Texas high school football coach, really what I mean is the most successful. That's the most. So that's a caveat. But it kind of depends on how you slice it. If you just look at the winningest active Texas high school football coaches, you have Phil.
Yep.
You got Phil Danaher. He's got 480.
Yep.
480 wins. Right? Pretty darn good. Next up is Randy Allen at Highland Park. Those two, he's got 414. Those two are lapping the field.
Yes.
Okay? Those two, because the next one is Denny Faith at Albany. He's got 317.
And it's gap.
He's got
like
97 fewer wins than Randy Allen. Now, Denny Faith has done that all at Albany. He is a legend out there.
Oh,
He is one of the few members of the 300 win club. We will almost certainly add another member to that, and it'll be Reginald Samples at Duncanville, who sits at 298. Then you get through to Larry Hill, Vance Jones at Balmorhea, one of the six-man guys I was able to include, Ross Rogers at Bryan, Tim Buchanan at Aledo, Jason Herring at Refugio, and Hal Wasson at Corsicana. Okay, those are the guys who have 250 wins. So you may be thinking, okay, tick the box. The greatest Texas high school football coach going right now is Phil Danaher. I think you'd be within your rights to say that.
Yeah.
We put him on the cover. We called him the king.
Yeah. I mean, wins speak a lot.
He hates that we've called him the king on the cover. So please tell him that whenever you see him. And
that just means we call him it more.
Hey, coach. Anyway, but what if we took another measure? What if we looked at winning percentage? Okay? What if we looked at win percentage that, plain and simple, Phil Danaher has 480 wins, but Phil Danaher's also coached 600 games.
Yeah.
He's coached a lot of games. What if you just go by who wins the highest percentage of their games? So I narrowed this down to just 100 games coached. You have to coach at least 100 games to be eligible for this list.
So, what Shadow Creek's coach? Was he somewhere else?
He would not be
eligible. Yeah.
He's not eligible. Brad Beller. No.
Yeah. Because, his winning percentage would be through the roof. But.
Sure. But, in fact, he's not even the highest right now.
Right.
I'll get to that in a moment. Really, the answer is, the highest winning percentage is Gary Joseph. Gary Joseph of Katy is 227-22.
That is insane.
He has a 91.2% winning percentage. Okay.
Goodness.
Next up is Jerry Burkhart at Richland Springs, who's 234-24, a 90.6 winning percentage. Those are the only two above 90%.
Wow.
Let me zoom out on Gary Joseph for a moment because I do think this is remarkable. Gary Joseph does not just have the highest winning percentage among active Texas high school football coaches with at least 100 games coached. Gary Joseph has the highest winning percentage among every Texas high school football coach ever with at least 100 games. Every coach ever. Okay? Nobody's ever won 91.2% of their games until Gary Joseph. And then it gets to Chris Ketting at Canadian.
Okay.
Hank Carter at Lake Travis. Scott Surratt at Carthage. Steve Lineweaver at Euless Trinity. Jake Fizel at Gunner. Brady Carney at Munster. Todd Rogers at Argyle, and Tom Westerberg at Barbers Hill. All those guys have won at least 84.5% of their games. Okay? Tom Westerberg's 186-34. And he's 10th on this list.
That's crazy.
So you could maybe look at Gary Joseph and say, it's him. By the way, some other notes here, and I have this in my piece. Terry Gamble, if he had not retired last month, would have ranked 4th on this list. He's 86. He would have ranked 4th. If you drop the minimum games to 50, it goes Gary Joseph, Chris Ketting, Kevin Hoffman at Mart, Hank Carter, and then Carl Absek at Cedar Park. If you remove the minimum games altogether and you just say, who are the best active coaches with that with winning percentage if they coached one game or 10,000?
Right.
First is Daniel Boddicker at Shiner.
Okay.
He's 26-1. Okay. Ryan Ebner at Grandview is 26-2. Then it's Gary Joseph.
This man.
Then it's Jerry Burkhart, and then it's Riley Dodge.
Okay,
Riley Dodge is 38-4. The all-time winning percentage leader with a minimum of 50 games coached is, and this is all-time, this is Steve Wood at Aledo. He went 75-4. Then you go to district championships, right? What about district championships? Well, it's Randy Allen at the top, 28.
Okay.
Phil Danaher at 27, and they're lapping the field. Denny Faith is again 3rd. But then it's a two-way tie between Ross Rogers and Reginald Samples at 16. Another two-way tie between Gary Joseph and Mark Kiroff at Fall City. And then it's a big glut at 14 with Richard Barrett at Kennedale, Sam Harrell at Ennis, Jason Herring at Refugio, Larry Hill at Smithson Valley, and John King at Longview. They've all won 14 district titles.
Wow.
Now, Randy Allen's got twice those.
Yeah.
Which is kind of amazing. But then, what if you just zoom out and you go, all right, no. We're going to measure who the best high school football coach in Texas is based on the big one, based on the big prize. Who's got the most state championships? Okay. The leader in the clubhouse is Jerry Burkhart at Richland Springs. He's won 9. He's tied with Gordon Wood all time for the most Texas high school football state championships with 9. Scott Surratt, among 11-man coaches, is next. He's got 8.
Yes.
Tim Buchanan's got 7. He just got his 7th. And behind him is another guy who just got his next one, which is Todd Dodge at Westlake and in South Carolina. Then you've got a glut of guys with 4, which are Randy Allen, Jason Herring, Vance Jones, Gary Joseph, Dwayne Lee at Strawn, who just left to go to Aquila, and then Tom Westerberg, who won his titles at Allen. And so what I think is important here is you've got to find whatever blend you want.
Right.
I think all of these things are important, right? All of these things I think are viable measures of who the best Texas high school football coach is. All of them are viable measures. It just kind of depends on what you value, right? If you're like, it's state championship or bust, well, then in 6-man, it's Jerry Burkhart, and in 11-man, it's Scott Surratt. Hard stop, right? If you care about, like, consistent winning, I think you've just got to go with Gary Joseph.
Yeah.
With a 90, almost 92% winning percentage, right?
Or
if you care about longevity, then it's Randy Allen or Phil Danaher, right? If you care about winning your district, it's Phil Danaher or Randy Allen. Like, those are the things that make this such an interesting conversation. And I'll close with this. I don't want to get too caught up in who the best is.
Yeah.
Because I think that overshadows an important point, which is all these guys are active right now in Texas, plus a bunch of coaches we didn't even mention.
Right.
And the depth of I've said for a long time, people ask what makes Texas high school football so great. Yeah, the facilities are great. Yeah, the players are incredible. Yeah, the fan support is great, right? I think that truly what makes Texas high school football special and the best in the world is the depth of coaching that you have here. We're about to talk with a guy who just left a college football job to coach high school football in Texas.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason for that. And it's because the depth of coaching here is so deep and so incredible that I think focusing only on who the best is kind of misses the grander point, which is there's great coaches everywhere. Everywhere you look, you're going to be coaching against a great coach. So I hope you'll check out my piece on TexasFootball.com. It's titled, who's best coach in Texas high school football today?